This is Foundations in Pre-Cal 10, Lesson 2.4, starting on page 85. And we are continuing in our trigonometry, and we're talking about finding the size of an angle in a right triangle. So just to review, we can, if we know what the sine of something is, or sorry, if we know what the sine of an angle is, we can figure out the angle itself by using our calculator. It's usually going to be sine to the minus 1, and that's usually the shift sign button, and then you put in the 0.45 and you hit the enter, and that gets you the angle. We sometimes call this the gimme the angle button. So this gives us 27 degrees. This one, if the cosine of the angle is 0.1624, that's approximately 81 degrees. We're rounding to the nearest degree as asked. And this is 79 degrees. So please make sure you know how to do that on your calculator. And remember that your calculator has to be set to degrees for this to work. Okay. Okay, and then how do we get the size of an angle from a triangle? Well, first thing we're always going to do is label our triangle. So here's the angle of interest, which makes this is the hypotenuse, this is the opposite, and this is the adjacent. Circle up. So I know that I'm going to use the adjacent and hypotenuse, which means that I'm going to do cos, because cos theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Going back to these notes, relative to angle A, 16 is the adjacent side and 34 is the hypotenuse. And then the trig ratio that involves adjacent side and the hypotenuse is the cosine ratio. We already got there. So we've got the cosine of angle A is 16 over 34, so we plug that in the calculator and we get 62 degrees. That's to the nearest degree. Okay, let's do some examples. So this first example, I'm actually going to write out the whole process, and then I'm going to shortcut it in the second and third example. So we start off, there's our angle of interest, there's the hypotenuse, there's the opposite, there's the adjacent. Since I've got the opposite and adjacent, I know that I'm going to use sine, so I'm going to write out sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. I think I said adjacent, I'm sorry. So sine of A is going to be my opposite measure, which is 4, over my hypotenuse, which is 6. And then I'm going to go, so I'm just going to write this out again, sine A equals. And what I need to do to both sides is take the inverse sine. So that sine to the minus 1 of that side is going to be, sine to the minus 1 of what was on the right side, which is 4 over 6. So you can see I've added the blue. So I've done sine to the minus 1 on the left side and sine to the minus 1 on the right side. So what I have remaining on the left side is just A. Oops, I don't want to use that color. So what we have is A equals sine to the minus 1 of 4 divided by 6, because that's what we're actually going to put into the calculator. And then when we hit equals, we get A equals 41.8103149, which we don't need all of. We were just asked to round it to the nearest degree, so that means that A is 42 degrees. And then we look at it and we go, does that make sense? Does that look like if the hypotenuse is 6, does that look like the opposite side is 4? It's about right. My angle looked like it could be 42 degrees, or sorry, 42 degrees. Yeah, that looks reasonable. Okay. Okay, next example, I'm going to do this one. I'm not going to write as much down. I am, however, going to identify my angle of interest, my hypotenuse, my opposite, and my adjacent, because that just makes life so much easier. And then, since I've got adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm going to go cos theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then cosine of B is, my adjacent was 10 and my hypotenuse was 19. And then I pick up my calculator and I get B equals 58 degrees. Example C, angle of interest, hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. This time I can use any of my ratios because I have all three of them. I'm going to choose to use tan. So tan theta is the opposite over adjacent. So tan of angle C is going to be 21 over 20. So that gets me C equals. It might actually help you to write down that it is tan to the -1 of 21 over 22. That if that's going to help you remember what you need to do on your calculator, then please do that, okay? And I get C equals 46 degrees. And that's the end of the first lesson, so go do the practice and then come back. Bye.